I want y'all to see something interesting. You see the name at the top? That's God's name in Hebrew. Now, when you put it in reverse, that's the second line. And then when you put it upside down from reverse, that's the third line. When you compress it together, that's what it looks like on the fourth line. The fifth line is how you say or spell Allah in Arabic. See, so Allah in Arabic is literally, you can see it with your own eyes, is God's name in Hebrew reversed and flipped upside down. Now that's a clever tactic of the devil, because we know the devil always takes what's godly and twists it, converts it, and flips it upside down. That's why he is called Satan. Let me reverse it here too, so you could also see it a little better, even though you should be doing it on your own. But you see? Now just look at the, now from here, look at the second line downwards. Okay? And that's what you see. All right. Now, let me change that back, because I'm not trying to have Allah on top of God's name. Now, something else that I want to show you guys is now I'm gonna get back to that, what I just showed you. But before I get back to that, you see Obama, President Obama, Barack Obama, his daughters' names are Malia and Natasha, right? Now, just like what the devil did with God's name, he flipped it, right? So we're gonna do the same things with Malia and Natasha. Now you would say his daughters' names are Malia and Sasha, but no, Sasha is the abbreviation. The full name is Natasha. Like my name is Samuel. That's my full name. People call me Sammy or Sam, but my full government name is Samuel. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take Malia and Natasha, and we're gonna flip it backwards. You'll see there, here, Malia becomes Ilam, right? And then Natasha becomes Satan. Now, when you remove Allah from the names, okay, when you remove the A and the L from Malia, flip backwards, and you remove the AH from Natasha, which is before the Satan, you get Allah, right? So Allah is in the names of Barack Obama's daughters. And when you flip them backwards, you get Allah. Or you get Allah in there. But when you remove the Allah from them, you're left with I-A-M S-A-T-A-N. Now you can do this yourself, but you can clearly see it on the screen. So when you remove Allah from the names of Barack Obama's daughters flipped backwards, you get I am Satan. Okay, so Obama is basically admitting that he works closely with the devil. Now, in Hebrew, Barack Obama has a meaning. Barak in Hebrew is lightning in Hebrew. O in Hebrew is used to combine two words. And Bama is something that is in a high place, like in the sky, in the mountain, or even heaven, right? So Barak is lightning, and Bama is something from a high place. So lightning from a high place, lightning from heaven, or lightning from a mountain, right? But since we're talking about spiritual things, we're going to use lightning from heaven. Now, in Luke 10, verse 8, Christ, our master, said, "Look, I beheld Satan falling as lightning from heaven." Look, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. That's Luke 10, verse 18. So Barack Obama literally means lightning from heaven. And in Luke 10, verse 18, Christ says, "Look, I beheld Satan falling as lightning from heaven." Now already we see that his daughter's last names, when you remove Allah from it, reveals the name, the term or phrase, I am Satan. Right? That's no coincidence. These people like using wordplay. Now, in order for you to get I am Satan and his daughter's last names, you have to remove Allah, right? So what he is basically saying is, I am Satan and I will ascend, because Allah in Hebrew means to ascend. Okay, Allah in Hebrew means to ascend. Look this up yourself. So he's saying, I am Satan. From his daughter's last names, he's saying, I am Satan, and in his own name, which is Barack Obama, lightning from heaven, he is revealing that I am Satan, because Christ said, look, I beheld Satan falling as an angel, as lightning from heaven. He's basically saying, yes, I'm Satan, and he will ascend, because you have to remove Allah before you get I am Satan. This goes with Isaiah 14, verse 13 and 14, which said concerning the devil, the great serpent, you said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly, on the utmost heights of Mount Zaphon. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. So Satan is definitely working in close junction with this guy, which is why there was the whole fiasco about his birth certificate not being legitimate, or even people who did research on his background and his life said that the people he went to school with don't even know who he is. They never grew up with him. They don't know who this guy is. They say, okay, he went to this college, but in the same year, we graduated in the same year, but I never knew that guy. Nobody ever knew this guy. And those who were able to find a few information about him, about his early days, said that the character that he was completely different than the character that he had to become in order to become a president. Okay. So, I mean, now let me get back to the other thing that I wanted to talk about. It is right here. Where have I kept it? Oh no, let me go to my Facebook actually. Now, Islam. Notice we had to go through Allah before we could get the revelation of Barack Obama, right? Barack Hussein Obama. Now, again, remember, in order to get Allah, you have to turn God's name. You have to flip it, like you had to do with Barack Obama's daughter's names. You have to flip God's name in Hebrew, the Tetragrammaton, and turn it upside down in order to get Allah. Okay? Satan takes everything godly and turns it upside down. That's why he's called Satan. In Revelation 12, verse 9, it said that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world, he was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Now, his angels aren't really his angels. They're just those who follow him. Okay, they follow his agenda. He makes Islam looks similar to ancient worship by adding prostration and prayer and fasting, which is a clever disguise, because then it's now you say these guys, these Muslim people look authentic, their worship looks genuine, and they themselves, the individuals themselves, are genuinely trying to worship God. But this is a clever trick of the devil to cause them to worship someone whom they think is God, but is actually not God. And 2 Corinthians 11 verse 14 says, but Paul said, but I am not surprised. Even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. It's clear that the angel whom Muhammad saw was Satan. Muhammad was cleverly deceived. He thought that angel was an angel of light, because the devil is perfectly capable of doing that. And the message that the devil brought to Muhammad is completely reversing what's in the Bible and flipping it upside down. The same tactics of the devil, the same old tactics of the devil. Galatians 1 verse 8 says, but even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to the one which we preach to you, let him be accursed. See, even if an angel of light preaches a different gospel, let that angel be accursed. 2 Corinthians 11 verse 3 says, but I'm afraid that as the serpent deceived Eve by his cunning, your thoughts will be led astray from a sincere and pure devotion to Christ. 2 Corinthians 2 verse 11 says, so that we would not be outwitted by Satan, for we are not ignorant of his designs. What he does is he takes what is godly, flip it around, and turn it upside down. We are not ignorant of his designs. He uses the same tactics, but yet he is able to deceive the majority of mankind. And let me get back to where I was. Acts 20 verse 30 says, even from your own number, men will arise and distort the truth in order to draw away disciples after themselves. Now, this is interesting because here, what Paul is saying is that even at the time of the first century Christians, there were those who were trying to distort, obviously being vessels of the devil. There were men who were in wolves' clothing, who were wolves but in sheep's clothing, trying to distort the truth. So if this was going on not too long after Christ died, what do you think would go on in Muhammad's time by a false angel or a real angel but with a false message? God instituted his covenant with Abraham, and he revealed his name to Abraham as Jehovah. But here the devil is saying no, his name is not Jehovah, his name is Allah, which means to ascend. That is the devil trying to ascend to God's position, which is we worship God. We are only supposed to worship God. But what the devil has been able to do is, quote unquote, ascend, not really, but he's quote unquote ascended and has been able to get multiple billions of people to worship him, to worship Allah, to worship a name that is God's name flipped backwards and turned upside down. You see, we are not ignorant of the devil's designs. And I mean, this really isn't an argument because which one came first, God's authentic name or Allah? God's authentic name came first. Centuries later, after we've been warned that this would happen, we get this message from so-called angel of light, which says God's name is Allah. And yet people still want to fall into that trap, even though we've been warned that this would happen. Islam is demonic. There's nothing else, to even really say. The serpent, Genesis 3:1 says, now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord Jehovah had made. Now, let's talk about this real quick. Even though God is speaking about the serpent or the snake, he isn't actually talking about the snake. People, let's not be stupid. The Bible calls the devil the great dragon. The Bible calls the devil a roaring lion. Is the devil really a roaring lion? Is the devil literally a dragon? So if Genesis 3:1 is referring to the devil as a serpent, if we're not taking him to be a literal dragon, if we're not taking him to be a literal roaring lion, why should we take him to be a literal serpent? Double standards, huh? God cursed the devil and said that you will crawl on your belly and you will lick dust or bite the dust. That's an expression. That you will be killed. You will be brought low and you will be killed. Even though you're trying to Allah, even though you're trying to ascend, you will be brought low and you will die just as men do. Okay? God was speaking to not a snake. He was speaking to the devil. He's using figure of speech, figuratism. Okay? He's basically saying, since you chose a snake to use a snake as a puppet to deceive Eve, because a snake is very cunning in the way it moves, since that's the creature you chose, you will become just like that creature. You too will crawl on your belly. You too will lick dust just like the creature you chose to try and deceive Eve. Not try, but the creature you chose to deceive Eve. Okay, that's why in the prophecy in Genesis, 3 verse 5 or 5 verse 3? I'm not sure. In the prophecy, it said that the snake would bruise Christ, but Christ will crush the snake's head. But is Christ actually going to crush all snakes' head, or is he going to crush the devil? Is he going to kill the devil? Okay, so you know that even though God is speaking about the serpent, he's not punishing the serpent because the serpent didn't do anything. He is punishing the devil. Okay, understand how God thinks. It's just intelligent form of speaking. Again, 2 Corinthians 11 verse 14. But I am not surprised. Even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So, of course, Muhammad saw an angel and received a different message than that of the Bible. And the angel he did see was an angel of light. but this was none other than the devil. My battery's 77%. Nice, my number. Okay, well, 37 is my number, but anyway, I'm gonna explain to you why I love this video. Now, let me just play it for y'all.
For the international order and for the international order that we have worked for generations to build. Ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs. That order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign.
Let me play that again.
And for the international order that we have worked for generations to build. Ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs. That order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign.
By the way, this picture that you're seeing here of Obama lookalike on the left side is taken from the Bible, from the series called The Bible. It was premiered some years ago. I watched like the first 5 minutes of it, or first 10 minutes of it, and I couldn't continue watching it because the way they distorted the Bible was so demonic. But anyway, this is a picture that I found online, and I remember seeing this in the commercial when they were advertising this. And this is the character that they used to represent the devil in the show, in the demonic show, the Bible. So that to me is no coincidence at all. Now, as regards the video we just saw, do not be fooled when Obama says that we should surrender our rights to an all-powerful being or all-powerful God. Now, you know his God is not the God of the Bible. We definitely know this because he says we should surrender our rights, right, to an all-powerful being. Now, apart from the evidence that I've just shown you, that he works closely with the devil, and even just this picture here from the Bible, from the show, the Bible. Apart from that, he says that we should surrender our rights. Now, isn't this the guy that legalized gay marriage? The Bible strictly prohibits gay marriage. It says that homosexuals will be killed. There will be no space for homosexuals in God's kingdom. They will not inherit God's kingdom. Sodom and Gomorrah was filled with homosexuals, and God said that their sin was very heavy, and he destroyed those 5 cities, and the evidence is there. As I've shown in my previous video, I believe, or my previous 2 videos, I've proven that Sodom and Gomorrah actually did take place. Look up this guy named Ron Wyatt. He talks about it, and he shows it. He proves it. The evidence is still there. Now, why would he legalize gay marriage? Isn't that doing the opposite of surrendering to God's command? If he was to surrender to God's command, we know the God he is talking about is not the God of the Bible, because if he was actually to surrender, if he was actually mean to surrender our rights to the God of the Bible, then he would not have legalized gay marriage. That is doing the opposite of surrendering to God's will. God's will is that homosexuals should be destroyed, that they should not exist, that they should not practice such disgusting things. So to submit to an all-powerful being who is of the Bible would mean to abolish such things, would mean to not condone homosexuality. But this is a guy who legalized gay marriage. So when he speaks of surrendering our rights to an all-powerful being, he is not speaking of the God of the Bible. He's speaking of the demonic God, the false God, the God of this wicked system of things that the Bible says, the devil. Now, I know when he said that we are too small-minded to govern our own affairs and that we need to submit to an all-powerful being, I know some people right off the bat would take offense to that. when he says that we are too small-minded to govern our own affairs. This exposes your heart and your mind. If you got a little offended when he said that you are too small-minded and I am too small-minded to govern our own affairs, and that we need to surrender our rights to an all-powerful being, if you got offended by that, then that reveals something about your character. You should not be offended by that. Even though I agree with what he's saying, but I also know the truth of what he's saying. Okay. He's speaking of the devil, but when he says that we are too small-minded to govern our own affairs, he's absolutely right, which is why we need God. Because remember, the devil said that we don't need God. The devil said that we are big enough to govern our own affairs. The devil said we do not need God. Remember, that was part of the two accusations that the devil raised against God, by saying that man can govern themselves and they do not need God. So if you had a problem with what he said, with what Obama said in the beginning, that we are too small-minded to govern our own affairs, if you had a problem with that, then it means you are actually siding with the devil and agreeing with the devil when the devil said that we are not too small-minded to govern our own affairs, that we are big enough and that we do not need God. You see, that's why I kind of like this video, because it reveals the real big debate, the spiritual battle that's going on that we do not see. So if you got upset, then you would have to change your mindset and realize that we are too small-minded to govern our own affairs, and we do need to submit ourselves to an all-powerful being. But the all-powerful being that this man right here is talking about is not the all-powerful, is not God. He's trying to talk about the devil, and the devil is not all-powerful, of course, but from his perspective, he views the devil that way, and that is the great deception that the devil has been able to put upon the elite. But now, for you Christians, I don't want you thinking that the devil has left you guys alone just because he's been able to be, successful with Islam. He's also been successful with Christianity. In what way? Many people have already proved that Allah has strong ties with Baal, and that whom the Islamic people are worshipping is in fact Baal. Now, Baal means Lord. That is what Baal means. So the name itself has actually been used and attributed to even God himself. Also, God himself even calls himself as Baal certain times in the Bible, because Baal just means Lord. Okay? If you remember the judge Gideon, he was called Jerubbaal. Baal just means Lord. But now, if you attribute the title of Baal to an idol, that's paganism, right? That's what the Israelites were doing. The devil has been successful in getting many people to worship Baal without them actually knowing it. Remember, the sin isn't in you knowing that you are doing something sinful. The point is hiding it and causing you to do it without you knowing that you are displeasing God. In what way are Christians still serving Baal today? Baal was known as the god of rain to the Israelites. He's the one who brought thunder and rain for the crops. So they would say things like, for example, in the time of Gideon, who was called Jerubbaal, when he tore down Baal's altar, the Israelites were angry with him, or that town that he lived in were angry with him, because they were saying, now that you have torn down Baal's image or idol, we're not going to get crops. We're not going to get food. We're not going to get rain. Okay, so they viewed Baal as the god of lightning, thunder, rain, etc. But they viewed Jehovah as the god of war. So they looked to Jehovah or Yehovah for war, but then they looked to Baal for rain. Okay, man, these people. But yeah, that's what they would do. So later on, Greek mythology, now Baal is incorporated in every civilization that you go to. You will find a Baal, quote unquote, of that civilization or of that region or of that culture. Now the Greeks, their Baal, well, let me let you figure this out. Who did the Greeks worship as the god of thunder and lightning and rain? Zeus, right? Okay. When the quote unquote Christians wanted the pagans to convert to Christianity, what would they do? Perhaps you do not know. Some of you already know. For example, December 25th. December 25th has nothing to do with Christ or the Bible or Christianity, but it has everything to do with paganism. That was the day that they worshiped the sun god. But in order to cause the pagans to convert to Christianity, they said, well, our Lord was born on December 25th, even though that's a complete blasphemy. But we're not going to talk about how Christmas is pagan. You should really already know that. But these are the tactics that they used, or the devil really used. Easter, the same thing. Halloween, even though it isn't even sugar-coated, but you guys still celebrate it. New Year's Eve with the pagan goddess, or with the pagan god Janus, pagan goddess Janus. They would try and meddle paganism into Christianity so that the pagans can easily convert to Christianity. Now, in the time of Greece, remember, some of the apostles, even John, wrote in Greek, right? So even at the time of Christ, when the Romans were there and the Greeks were there, they were meddling closely with these people, the Greeks. Yeshua, that was his name. That is his name. Yeshua or Yehoshua. But the Greeks did not feel comfortable. Remember, the Greeks are pagan. The Greeks did not feel comfortable using that name. They said, no, what we're going to do is we're going to call him Jesus. Now, I know they try to justify it by saying that they could not pronounce the sh. So instead of saying Yeshua, they say Yeshua? No, they say Jesus. You see the clever trick of the devil? Zeus is the Baal of Greece because he is the god of thunder and lightning. Now, instead of calling your Lord Yeshua or Yehoshua, which you know is the authentic name, and instead of using the English version of Yeshua or Yehoshua, which is Joshua and Jehoshua, you want to take the Greek transliteration form and call him Jesus. Right? That's what you want to do. So you're accepting the pagans' language and the pagans' form of rendering your master's name. But you feel okay with that. As I've mentioned numerous times already, I know many people try to say that even though it sounds like Zeus, it has no affiliation with Zeus. Let me explain to you why this is complete nonsense and foolishness and stupidity on the part of people who say that. Whenever, and I've said this numerous times and I will say it again for those who have not heard, whenever the Greeks wanted to give glory and adoration and respect to their false pagan deity, their version of Baal, Zeus, whenever they wanted to give glory and adoration to Zeus, they would put a Zeus or S-U-S or S-E-U-S at the end of a name. So for example, Pegasus means horse of Zeus. Tarsus means sweat of Zeus. Taurus means bull of Zeus. Olympus is the temple of Zeus. Ephesus is a city in dedication to Zeus. Dionysus is the daughter of Zeus. You get it? Isus. You're saying Isus. You're saying all these other names that I just mentioned, and there are many more, tens more. All these other names that I mentioned have complete direct affiliation with the pagan god Zeus. But yet Isus has no affiliation with Zeus. So someone is telling you it has no affiliation with Zeus, and you're going to take their word for it. Meanwhile, you know your master's name in Hebrew is Yeshua, Yehoshua, or Yehoshua. And in English, it should be Joshua or Jehoshua. But no, you're okay with using the pagans' rendering of your master's name. Not even the translation of your master's name, but the transliteration of your master's name. And I'm saying Jesus because it is Latin. So even though in English we say Jesus, Jesus is derived from the Latin word Jesus. So by you saying Jesus, it is no different from you saying Jesus. You understand? And the majority of Christians today worship Jesus. They worship Jesus. You see how the devil has been able to get billions of Muslims to worship Baal, Allah, who is God's name, reversed and turned upside down. And he has also caused Christians to worship Baal by calling on the name of Jesus instead of calling on Yeshua or Yehoshua or Joshua or Jehoshua. You see it now? Okay. And I'm not going to stop talking about this. I'm going to keep talking about it.